If Donald Trump says, I want to do X, and Bernie and a lot of other Democrats are like, that, let's do X. And then he's like, oh, well, no, I don't actually, never mind. I don't want to do that. I anticipate a lot of things like that happening.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Jacob Morrison hosts the Valley Labor Report right here on WVNN, 9:30 to 11, every single Saturday. And the thing I want to talk to you about right now, Jacob, is an interesting discussion going on right now with Donald Trump and steelworkers. And Donald Trump, like we talked before, got more votes from union members than most people expected him to, although he appealed greatly to them. As of right now, he says he wants to block a Japanese firm's takeover of U.S. Steel. Kamala Harris, during the campaign, said that she opposed this takeover as well, and that you would think that might have something to do with how the Biden administration handles this, but the Biden administration has kind of been quiet about this. President-elect Donald Trump said that he would block this, but, Biden could force this through. Biden is doing a lot of things right before Trump takes over, pardoning his son, sending more money to Ukraine, that kind of stuff. So, Jacob Morrison, you're a labor guy. Donald Trump's taking the labor position here. Where are the Democrats on this?
Just a couple of quick corrections, I think.
Okay.
The union members were actually one of the only demographics to not move towards Trump this election. The same number of union members voted for Kamala Harris as did Joe Biden, and some surveys actually showed that the support for Harris increased over Biden. So that's kind of an interesting data point amid.
But Trump is still pulling. Hold on. Trump is still pulling more union members than other Republicans traditionally.
Yeah, for sure.
But
the Biden administration has actually, I don't think I would say that they've been quiet about it. I think that they've been as loud as anybody about opposing the purchase of U.S. Steel, as have a lot of Democrats. The Pennsylvania governor, Pennsylvania's senators. I'm not actually aware of a single Democrat that has supported it. Perhaps there are some, but it seems like it's been a pretty bipartisan move to say this is bad. It's not good to have Nippon buy U.S. Steel, and so I would be very shocked if Biden does anything different in his last few weeks in office. Because this position aligns with where he's historically been. He's historically been, in the union position, typically, pro the things that unions want. So I'd be very surprised, but it is welcome that Trump has reiterated. Trump, just like Biden, just like Harris, has been consistently against the purchase of Nippon, of U.S. Steel by Nippon, and so I welcome his reiteration of that position. And we'll see what happens. Of course, here in Alabama, Donald Trump was not very good for members of the Steelworkers Union. You'll remember the Gadsden tire plant that closed in May of 2020 while he was still president, and this deal was coming up during his presidency, and he didn't do anything about it, despite the steelworkers in Alabama attempted to reach out to the office of the president, and nothing happened. And so, he's not got a great track record of delivering for the steelworkers specifically, but I would imagine that he follows through on his opposition to this deal.
So again, here's my question: is Biden going to step up and spike this thing? Because you haven't really heard anything. You say obviously some Democrats in Pennsylvania and things like that. It's a swing state. That's why it got all this attention. Is the Biden administration going to kill this thing?
Will he kill it before, I don't know that he'll actually put a final nail in the coffin before the end of the administration. I'm not exactly sure what the deadlines are for the completion of this deal. But if there are deadlines before the end of the Biden administration, my anticipation would be that he would kill it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I looked this up. We were talking. Yeah. He has voiced his opinion about this in September. Kamala Harris as well. So it sounds like every politician on the planet is against this thing. So it seems like this would be almost a no-brainer to spike, yet it seems to be moving forward. So we'll see where that goes. At least the two major political parties here seem to be opposed to this. What do you make of the more labor-friendly guys like Bernie Sanders reaching out to Trump and saying, like, hey, help us out on stuff, help us out on stuff? And some people are kind of beating up on Bernie Sanders, saying, hey, you can't work with this guy. He's a fascist. You can't be reaching out to him and stuff. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, Bernie's always been that way. Bernie has always had a very consistent set of principles and policies that he wants to put forward, and it does not matter to him who is in office. If he sees opportunities to move the ball on some of his priorities, then he'll do that. And I think that makes sense, particularly as a politician. You know, it's difficult for me to imagine the idea that I'm on principle not going to do good things with this person because I disagree with them on other things. That just has never made sense to me. And so I think the people that are beating up on Bernie are very, very, very silly. And so, and I think that there's a value either way that this goes for people who have politics like Bernie, in my opinion. And that is, if Bernie is able to push the ball down the road on some of these issues, like fighting corporate power, like, decreasing the defense budget, moving some of that money around to actually more productive enterprises within the United States, then, that's great. That's great. He's been talking about these things for his whole career, and he was able to do it under the Trump administration, potentially, right? Yeah. That's great. And we've done a good thing. And then if he doesn't, then that will be educational for people who supported Donald Trump, thinking that he cares about these things, right? If, Donald Trump says, I want to do X, and Bernie and a lot of other Democrats are like, bet, let's do X. And then he's like, oh, well, no, I don't actually, never mind. I don't want to do that. I anticipate a lot of things like that happening.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
Yeah, but a lot of things that they're talking about are things that Donald Trump, are they things Donald Trump has actually called for? I mean, he's calling for like a reformation of not of Social Security, but of entitlements and things like that. You talk about the Pentagon budget, things like that. It strikes me as kind of strange. I don't think you're going to see a huge cut in defense spending. Donald Trump has always been a hawk on that. I mean, he just doesn't. And even though Bernie Sanders and Elon Musk are talking about that, I don't think that they share the same ground on that particular front. Do you?
I don't. No, I don't. And a lot of people, I think, voted for Donald Trump thinking that he was kind of a dove, or and that I think that there's a potential that people are going to be surprised. During his first administration, Trump significantly ramped up the drone war. Civilian casualties significantly increased in the Middle East while he was president over Obama, and Obama was like a historic failure in terms of preventing war, I think, and significantly, in not engaging proactively in war. Obama was kind of the founder of the drone wars, and Trump exacerbated that. And so, I think there are going to be some people that are surprised, but no, I do not anticipate a cut of the defense budget. Even though I do think that's a lot of that is something that a lot of Trump voters would like to see, because I do think that there are a lot of people that don't like how involved we are, particularly in wars in the Middle East, and how much of like time and money we spend talking about that. I think
the difference they have on this is he wants to cut that and spend that money on social programs. And Elon Musk and them are talking about basically making it a more nimble.
Yeah, they want to cut the social programs. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, forget about that for a second. I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think anybody wants to cut social programs. I think it made it very clear that neither side has the real appetite to do that. I think what's more likely is they want to lean, make the Pentagon leaner and meaner, not necessarily as bloated. But I don't think you're going to see defense cuts there. I just think those are almost untouchable things, which is how we got in this situation we're in at this moment. You had shared a link with me about H-2B visas and the ability of the people who are coming into the country on those visas, which are basically farm workers being brought here to pick crops at basically not necessarily slave wages, but pretty close, being able to unionize. And, there's a big immigration concern we have right now, and that fight is ongoing. I don't think you're going to see buses pull up to farms where people are picking crops and things like that and start hauling people away. That's not where your problem is. But I think there's a lot of talk about mass deportations and stuff like this. This is on the other side. This is about unionization of those farms and things like that. A judge came in and said, no, they're not eligible for that. And you called this BS and you said you wanted to talk about it. What do you want changed here?
Yeah, well, a judge did that in part because of, our attorney general siding with farm owners in Alabama over the farm workers of Alabama. What this, like you mentioned, this is legal immigration. The H-2A visa program allows farmers to bring in seasonal workers to supposedly to fill a labor need, right? Like it's just impossible for these farm owners to find American farm workers, and so they have to get people from other countries. And so I think it's important when we do that to make sure that, okay, if we're really going to do this and we're going to say that they're filling a labor need that these farm owners have, they should not be undercutting, what could potentially be, American jobs. And so, like, if there just literally are not the bodies here, then let's make sure that we are paying these people good American wages. And one way to do that is to empower these workers to organize themselves and try to get a contract themselves. And so the Biden administration's Department of Labor issued some regulations around these H-2A visas saying that they have protection from retaliation. It didn't even give them an explicit right to unionize. It said if they unionize, you can't retaliate against them just by virtue of the fact that they unionized. And so it's not even that they gave them an explicit right to unionize. It's that they have a right to be protected against retaliation. And that was a step too far for people like Steve Marshall. And he took this to court. And he won. And not only did he say, part of it was like, I think that there's some procedural issues here. And like, I disagree. I think that I think that it makes sense that the government would have the ability to do this through rulemaking. But he said that this is an example of the Biden administration putting union interests over Alabama farmers. And I think that really gets to the problem of why I am so skeptical about the anti-immigrant rhetoric among the Republican Party politicians, because the coding is always, we want to make sure that things are better for American workers. Well, if that were true, Steve Marshall would not have done this. If that were true, Steve Marshall would
Well, let's just real quick here as we wrap this up. The quickest way to get rid of some of this labor, this immigrant labor, is have them unionize and be paid roughly the same wage as an American farm worker you might bring in. I mean, because that's really where they come in here in this particular case. You bring them in because they're cheaper, and the minute you take away that cheapness from the equation, they're gone. Do you agree with that?
And because they're cheaper. And why are they cheaper? Because they're so exploited. These H-2A visas,
yes,
they are directly tied, even though they're not undocumented, they're directly tied to the employer. And so the minute the employer doesn't want them anymore, they have to go back. And so this is something to give them a little bit of empowerment so that they can advocate for themselves. And maybe it wouldn't get exactly to an American farm worker wage, but it would be higher. It would be higher. They would get a higher wage, and that would be beneficial for American workers, I think. And so if that were singularly what you were focused on, you would not be opposing this rule that just protects people from retaliation for expressing what I think are their First Amendment freedom of association rights, right? But, I don't think that's actually what it is. I think it's primarily about protecting the bosses, and there's some amount of
Democrats got mad last time we took away their
here.
slave labor too, and that's really where we're at this point. This is a larger issue here right now that is happening, where the immigration issue has multi-prongs, both legal and illegal, and these individuals are taken advantage of. And this is an angle of getting at that. I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. And I think one of the ways you make this kind of labor less appealing is you make it more expensive. So there we go. And this is part of the legal process that would do just that. Jacob Morrison, thank you very much.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.